All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's tournament strategy show. Let me pull up the banner so everyone can see it. On this show, we will game plan, look at these games, go game by game, talk through injury news, guys I like, potential leverage plays. And then, of course, on the pre-lock show, which is at 5:30 p.m., which will be with myself and Brandon, aka B-Dubs, today. We'll talk through the execution side of things, leverage plays. We'll show what we're doing in the optimizer to get the lines that we get and go from there. Thomas, good to see you, man. Agreed. Let's start the week off strong. And it's an interesting 4-game slate. I'm kind of pumped, not going to lie. I saw that at least for this Friday slate, we're not going to have late swap, and I love that. Late swap is fine on occasion, but I hate having to be engaged the entire night, not being able to do anything else. It's going to be fun to take some educated risk that hopefully give us a little bit of an edge. So we'll see. Anyway, let's jump into this slate. Starting off, we have the highest total slate or highest total game on the slate. Raptors going up against the Pacers. You already know this is the game I'm going to be focusing on for the vast majority of my lines. The Raptors, no one's on the injury report as of right now. Looks like everyone's going to play, which makes them a tougher team to predict and a tougher team to force exposure to. But like I said, they're going up against the Pacers. Pacers play at a fast pace, and so I'm playing a lot of the Raptors tonight. Scotty Barnes, one of the more consistent pieces here. I want to be at least around field weight exposure, ideally slightly above the field there. I'm thinking somewhere between 30 and 50% ideally, but we'll wait and see how things play out. That's where he's at right now for me. Emmanuel Quickly, another guy I just don't want to forget about. Love the game environment. Want to make sure he's showing up. RJ Barrett, I'm on the fence. He's not showing up naturally in my lineups, which gives me a little bit of pause. The sim model, we're updating that, so that will help give me a little bit more of a lean, a little bit more insight around what I want to do with him. But it's more of a wait and see approach. I'll have a firm grip on what I'm doing by the time we get to the pre-lock show today. And then next up, we have Jakob Poeltl. Love playing Jakob Poeltl in nice matchups. This is a good matchup for him going up against the Pacers. And as long as the minutes are there, which can be a little wonky with Jakob sometimes, I love the spot. So he's another guy I'm looking to focus on and make sure I'm at least around field weight exposure on. Other guys I like to see show up in lines, guys like Gary Trent Jr. He's priced appropriately at this point, so he's not someone I feel like I have to play, but I want to see him show up a little bit. Kelly O is fine, but I'm not going to force him in. Bruce Brown, we do have a bit of a revenge narrative here, but he had the same revenge narrative 3 games ago and didn't do shit. So I don't feel like we have to get to Bruce Brown tonight either, but I'm okay if he shows up a little bit in my lines. And that's about it. I like this team, but, nothing too crazy. Let's see. For the Pacers, we all know I like picking on the Raptors. Ever since they've lost some of the pieces, they've been struggling. And especially from a defensive standpoint. So I like to play guys against the Raptors. For me, I'm prioritizing Tyrese Halliburton. I don't have a like on him because he's showing up enough by himself. So I didn't have to manipulate the optimizer to do anything there. But if by the time we get to lock, that's no longer the case, I will force exposure to Halliburton tonight. Siakam's interesting. Of course, there's a revenge narrative there. Siakam and upside have not been something we have been able to say or rely on pretty consistently. Matchup is nice. I love the narrative, but it's really hard to find a great reason to play him. I strongly prefer Miles Turner at 6,900. I think he's too cheap, and I also love the upside in a soft matchup. You might be wondering what happened to Miles Turner in the last game. He was out. And so that's why I'm interested in seeing if guys like Isaiah Jackson and Obi Toppin, I wouldn't be shocked if they see a little bit more ownership than they should on this slate, just because they both had decent games in the last literally just 2 to 3 slates ago. But that was because Turner was out. If Turner plays, I don't think we need to get cute looking there. Mathern's viable if Nesmith out. We just got that news. We've been playing Matherin for a while now. I think we can stay on the train. Not something I feel the safest about, but at 5,500, he still makes sense in the best game environment on the slate. Nimbard's fine as a potential pivot, but I'm not trying to force exposure to him. But he is showing up a little bit naturally. TJ McConnell, I don't think you have to get to at 4,800. He's been efficient here lately with the amount of time he's playing, but I don't love depending on efficiency. All right, we spent a lot of time on that first game because to me it's the best game on the slate, like I said. But there's still some other interesting spots here. Next up, we have the Pistons going up against the Knicks. I know the Knicks historically are a team that we don't love picking on, but again, this is not the same Knicks team that they were earlier this season. They're dealing with a lot of injuries, so a lot more than meets the eye. Cade Cunningham, we've been on this train for a while. Going to continue to play him here. Matchup is fine. Like I said, ownership isn't crazy too on a 4-gamer, so I want to be at least around field weight exposure. Potential leverage play, but I need to wait and see how the sub model's looking at things too. Jalen Duren, again, softer matchup going up against the Knicks without some of the guys with some of the injuries that they have. So Jalen Duren, 6,800, going right back to him here. At again, relatively low ownership for a 4-game slate. Ivy, Fontecchio, Grimes, these are guys that are showing up in my lines a little bit, but I'm not going to force exposure to them tonight. Just going to trust the DS on this one. And that's really it. I mean, the Pistons aren't a team that I think we're ever excited to force exposure to, but every now and again, there's a decent spot against a team that I think people are a little afraid to play players against. And so I think that's why we're seeing a little bit less ownership than there should be, just because they're not really pricey, which is nice. Steven, what's up, man? Agreed, it's winning time. Hope you're doing all right. Let's see. The Knicks, again, another team I like a decent amount on this slate. The Knicks, we talked about it. They're still missing Randall, OG, Robinson. These guys have all been out for a while, though, so nothing that's really too forcing our hand here where we feel like there's a ton of extra value. It's just news that has impacted their team over the last few games. Brunson is popular for good reason. Pistons are not a great defense. Brunson has a ton of ceiling, and he's been in pretty good form lately. Brunson's showing up around 30-35% exposure for me currently. That's exactly where I want to be with Brunson. If I'm a little bit higher than that by the time we get to the pre-lock show, that's nice, but I want to be over the field on him tonight. Brunson's one of those plays that just seem like it makes so much sense that I can't really find a great reason not to unless you're really afraid of a blowout, but I'm not overly concerned about that, so I like Brunson a lot tonight. And then DiVincenzo is someone who hasn't shown that same 40-50 point upside that he did initially when some of these trades started to happen. He started to fall down a little bit closer to earth, but he's still scoring like 30, 35 points. Like he's still been decent. And we know the upside is still there. And so I'm looking at DiVincenzo at super low ownership as someone that I'm, again, waiting to see what this model says because we're still updating that. But especially if the sim model is into DiVincenzo as well, I want to be significantly over the field on him and a pretty solid and decent matchup for him tonight. 8% ownership? That's crazy. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Like I said, I need to look a little bit closer at it, but right now that's looking insane to me. And then Precious Achiuwa, 7K. I feel like he's priced appropriately, but he's been playing so many minutes. And again, decent matchup. I'm totally fine with him showing up in my lines tonight. Josh Hart, just like Precious, plays a lot of minutes. And again, in a soft matchup, I want exposures to guys like this, but I'm not going to force either one of them into being a core play. But if they're not showing up for me, I will force exposure to being at least closer to field weight. Then the other guys here, not overly excited about them. So interesting pieces from the Knicks and the Pistons, but again, not a team I'm trying to like build my slate around or build my lines around. Next up, we have the Nets against the Grizzlies. I think you guys know I hate the Nets and the Grizzlies. These two teams both annoy the absolute hell out of me. But for the Nets, we have Ben Simmons listed as questionable. That matters. He plays a little bit. I mean, I think if he gets ruled out, it really just solidifies some of these guard plays as slightly more viable. Dennis Schroeder started last time Simmons was ruled out, so I think we're expecting that to be the case once again. At 4,500, Dennis Schroeder is really the only guy that I'm getting exposure to currently in my early runs. And given the decent matchup against the Grizzlies, I'm okay with that. And he's only 4,500 and he's not too chalky where, again, I'm okay with him being around 20-25%, which is where I have him right now. But outside of that, none of these guys are guys that I'm going to force exposure to. When it comes to the Nets tonight, I'm really just going to trust the DS. We know Bridges, Thomas, they have upside, but there's nothing forcing my hand here that makes me feel like I need to force more exposure to them, especially when they're basically healthy outside of Ben Simmons. A lot of bodies for them to use and utilize here. Then we have the Grizzlies. Like I said, not my favorite team. Healthier with like Luke Kennard not on the injury report, Vince Williams not on there, Zaire not on there. But John Concher's still out, Bain, Smart, Pippen, Clark, Morant, all those guys are still out. The Grizzlies are showing up a decent amount naturally. Gigi Jackson's showing up a lot in my lines. He's been in solid form here lately, so I'm okay with that at 4,900. But again, not a situation I'm trying to force more exposure to. Zaire, Vince Williams, Jaren Jackson Jr., all fine. I mean, I don't love Jaren Jackson Jr. I feel like even he knows at this point their season's over. He's not winning any awards. I really never loved playing Jaren Jackson, but the matchup against the Nets is, again, a pretty neutral, solid one. So this game, not one I'm trying to force exposure to, but whatever the DS gives me, it gives me, that kind of situation. And part of why I also don't love it, lowest game total on the slate. It does have the closest spread, so if this game goes into overtime, I could be having some regrets, but as of right now, I'm pretty comfortable with the way my lines are looking without too much of those guys. For the Heat, this is the game and the team that we're looking at the most, and what's also giving me the most pause in regards to what I'm actually doing on this slate. Let me explain why. Jimmy Butler, Nikola Jovic, Thomas Bryant, they're all suspended, so they're not playing tonight. Obviously, Jimmy Butler's huge. Jovic is also a pretty big deal as well. Then we have Tyler Hero, who's listed as questionable. Huge news. And then Terry Rozier, questionable. He might be returning a little bit early from his knee injury he was dealing with. If even just one of Hero and or Rozier get ruled out, it makes the Miami Heat much more viable. If they both play, a little bit less excited about it, but Bam Adebayo is still going to be a focal point for me. He's just so much more involved from an offensive standpoint when Jimmy Butler or Tyler Hero get ruled out that he becomes easy money for me tonight. And at relatively low ownership, Bam is another guy I'm looking at as a potential leverage play on the slate. If Tyler Hero plays, he's in play. I'm going to play him tonight. But I'm really hoping he doesn't so I can take some shots on Jaime, Duncan Robinson, even a little bit of Caleb Martin, Kevin Love, that kind of thing. But that's more of a wait and see approach. Delon Wright might also get into the mix a little bit more if we see Hero and Rozier miss. It's going to be interesting. There's a lot of possibilities, but I think either way, the Heat are a team I don't want to forget about because I think everyone else is. But again, if we get the news early enough, they'll be chalky. So we'll have to wait and see. And then we have the Kings. I think everyone's favorite team tonight, probably. They're getting decent ownership early. No real injury news worth talking about here. Wagwan. What's up, Kaboom? I know that was a random transition, but I just saw your comment. How do you feel about Killa Cam? I mean, Cam Thomas is always worth mentioning. The upside is there. The Nets are just never a team I feel like I have to force exposure to. But like I said, we're still waiting on the sim model to get updated. That'll be done by the time the pre-lock show is up. And you all know I trust the sim model a ton when it comes to what decisions I'm going to make on the slate. So wish we had it already, but it's getting worked on. Is he not worth the price tag? I wouldn't say that. I didn't see his price tag and think he was. It's really just that the Nets are healthy. And when they're healthy, they utilize quite a few guards. Cam Thomas is still going to get his minutes. He's just a streaky shooter. At low ownership, I think he's worth a shot if you really want to take it. But ultimately, there's nothing pointing me towards playing Cam Thomas. And I tend to follow the numbers and then I might have one or two gut plays every now and again, but usually I just follow my trends and make those small changes. But anyway, for the Kings, this is a team that I like a lot on this slate. We've been saying it all year. Miami is not a team to fear, especially when Jimmy Butler's not playing. He just really has a pretty dramatic impact on the Miami Heat from a defensive standpoint. We know Sabonis. I mean, if you just look at his game logs, you know what Sabonis does. I don't think we have to talk about that. I'm playing Sabonis. I'll be at least around 30%, if not higher. He makes sense to play. I'm not trying to avoid him here. The matchup against Bam, I mean, it's pretty neutral. The Heat are giving up the 18th most points to centers this season. That's pretty much right in the middle. Not something to avoid, in my opinion. But so yeah, Sabonis is really my top priority for the Kings. Outside of that, Monk will show up, I'm pretty sure, in most optimizers. He just projects well. He's only 5,800. He just makes a lot of lineups work. And I'm always okay with a filler like that. I like my lineup fillers to be guys that have high upside, and Monk has upside. So again, not someone I'm going to force in, but he's a solid lineup finisher. Keegan Murray, the exact same story, plenty of upside there. De'Aaron Fox, similar to RJ Barrett, I haven't made a firm decision on. Gonna wait and see what the sim model is saying and what that data is presenting. Mostly because he's streaky and he's chalky. And so whenever I see that combination, it means I need to look a little bit closer at it to see where I'm gonna fall. Herder's fine. I know he's not projecting overly well, but again, streaky shooters I'm usually okay with on a 4-game slate. Harrison Barnes is looking chalky. I need to look a little bit closer at it. Off the top of my head, I don't love it, but if he makes your lines work, it's fine. All right. Yep. Also, Keegan Murray's showing up a lot for me right now. I might have to cap it a little bit, but we'll see. And then I did skip over Quentin Grimes. He's also showing up a lot for me early on. He's only 3,600. Bit of a revenge narrative here. Again, it does make me a little nervous. We haven't seen him play too much yet in this system. So if there's not a ton of data to support a decision, I don't love recommending it. But at 3,600, playing 25 plus minutes here, he makes sense. His shot wasn't great in that last game, but he's logical. I get why he's showing up so much. I'm going to look a little bit closer to see if he'll be a core play for me or not. As of right now, he's a core play, but I doubt he'll be a core play for me by the end of it. What's up, fam? Hope you're doing all right, Rodney. Hope you had a good weekend. But all right, guys, that's everything for me. Again, pretty simple 4-game slate. We know news is going to be everything, especially that Miami Heat news. But Brandon and I will both be on the pre-lock show later today, 5:30 p.m. So we'll have a good game plan ready for y'all then. But I'll see y'all later. Peace out, guys. Bye.